house at the edge of town that had been abandoned for years. It was said that strange things happened in that house and people who entered it never returned. One day, a young man named Jack decided to explore the old house. He had always been fascinated by old, creepy places, and this one was no exception. As he walked through the dusty rooms and creaky hallways, he felt a sense of unease. Suddenly, he heard a faint whisper, and his heart began to race. He looked around but saw nothing. He continued to explore, and soon he came across an old photo album. As he flipped through the pages, he saw pictures of an old man who lived in the house many years ago. His name was John, and he was the grandfather of the family who once lived there. The more Jack learned about John, the more he felt a strange connection to him. He felt as though John was still there, somehow watching over him. As he continued to explore the house, he came across an old bedroom. Inside, he found an old rocking chair that was rocking back and forth on its own. He was scared but curious, so he sat in the chair and began to rock. Suddenly, the room grew cold, and he felt a presence behind him. He turned around and saw the ghostly figure of John standing there, staring at him with empty eyes. But then, just as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. Jack opened his eyes and found himself back in the old bedroom, alone. He ran out of the house and never looked back. From that day on, Jack never spoke of his experience in the old house. But he could never forget the feeling of John's presence and the fear that he felt. He knew that he had stumbled upon something beyond his understanding, and that the old grandfather's spirit still haunted that old house. Despite the fear and unease that Jack experienced in the old house, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to John's story. So he spent the next few weeks researching the history of the house and the family who had lived there. Through his research, he discovered that John had been a kind and loving grandfather who had doted on his grandchildren. He had passed away in the house many years ago, but his spirit had never left. Jack realized that the old house was not a place of fear, but a place of memories and love. He decided to honor John's memory by sharing his story with others and helping to preserve the old house as a historical landmark. Years later, people still tell stories of the old house and the ghost of John that haunts it. But they also remember the young man who uncovered the truth behind the legend and helped to keep John's memory alive.